HGI Now, turning supply chain insights into action.
Welcome to HGI Now. I'm Edward Hertzman, founder of Hertzman Global Intelligence. Today I'm joined by Ron Sorini, principal and co-founder of international trade firm Sorini, Samet and Advisors. Ron is a fixture on the Hill with extensive experience in trade negotiations, international politics, and the economy. Ron, thanks for taking the time to join me. I can imagine how incredibly busy you and your team are right now.
Edward, great to be here. Yeah, we've never been busier.
So with that in mind, let's just get right into it. With trade in the headlines every day now, what is the question you get asked the most from your clients?
When will things stabilize? When will we have certainty, and when can we predict what the trade environment is going to be 6 months down the road?
Hey, what's your answer to that?
Answers, we're getting there. I think that two factors as we transition from the IEEPA tariffs, which obviously the Supreme Court ruled against, to the 122 tariffs, Section 122 tariffs that are in place till July 24th, to eventually 301 tariffs that will kick in shortly, either on July 25th or shortly thereafter. That combined with the midterm elections, I think there's strong concern among Republicans in the House and Senate that tariffs are a drag on the economy and that tariffs are going to affect the midterm elections. So again, as that panic continues to set in, I think Congress will be more interested in constraining the White House in terms of what it's doing on trade and be a little more predictable.
Well, let's follow up on that. The 122 tariffs are in place, but we know the Trump administration has opened 301 probes. What do you anticipate will happen as a result? And are there some countries which are more vulnerable than others?
I think the big trade deficit countries are very vulnerable. So that's going to be, of course, China, Vietnam, a lot of the Southeast Asian countries, Mexico, et cetera. I can tell you what the White House plans, and I think it's going to probably deviate from that a little bit. But the original plan was that these Section 301 investigations would be commenced, about when they did, conclude by the time the Section 122 tariffs expire, and that they would then be able to put into place, using Section 301, the same rates that existed under IEEPA. And again, back up again, because it's interesting. After the administration lost at the Supreme Court, the president announced that Section 122 tariffs would be imposed at 10%. That very same day, at the end of the day, he said they were going to go to 15%. But yet they haven't. And the White House has been incredibly silent about that. So what we were told and led to believe was the main reason they didn't go to 15% quickly was the president was planning on going to China at the end of March, early April. That trip has been delayed to mid-May. I think that is a big factor, because the president clearly wants to deal with China. But also the European Union weighed in and said, hey, wait a minute, if you go to 15%, that breaks the deal we had with you, because we had a deal with you under IEEPA that no tariffs would be above 15%. A combination of the normal tariff and the IEEPA or Section 122 tariff. So if they'd gone to 15%, and I think the administration believes they have to do 122 across the board. They can't deviate by country. So if they would have gone to 15% on the European Union, Japan, and the countries they had this cap on stacking, they would have violated agreement. So I think it's a combination of those two reasons why we're going to stand pat at 10% until July 24th. So this is about the best the environment's going to be for most products, 10%, because they will go up after July 24th.
And what does this mean for trade deals that have been announced but not yet signed?
So I think they will be finalized. I don't anticipate the administration will want to renegotiate them. What they will want to do is negotiate additional agreements. There are still some countries in Southeast Asia, like the Philippines, which have not finalized a deal. The Philippines, interestingly enough, who historically have been closer to the United States on trade, has been focused on doing a free trade agreement with the European Union. And we're seeing those kind of shifts. But eventually the U.S. will need, the Philippines is a very important strategic partner. of the U.S. So there'll have to be agreements with those countries and others.
Ron, with everything you just said in the past few minutes, how are you advising your clients on what to do next?
Well, we advise them to comment on the Section 301 investigations. That was really important. So that comment period closed on April 15th at midnight. But there probably will be a second comment period. Again, recall how the 301 investigations went with China under the first Trump administration. They announced the results of their investigation, that China was basically found guilty of abusing the trade laws. Then they proposed the tariffs they would put into place to offset that imbalance. And then then they opened up another comment period. People could comment on that. So I think that will be very important. If people have not commented, at least U.S. importers and retailers have not commented during the first period, they should on the second. Because I do think the administration will be looking to see, do they really need to apply tariffs across the board like they have been in the past? I do think there's a lot of pressure on the White House, number one, to provide relief to U.S. manufacturers that have to import components and parts. So I think this 301 process could result in that. I also think you've seen the president make comments such as, we really don't want to make socks and apparel in the U.S. Or Secretary Besson saying, we should think about no tariffs on baby products. That would include infants wear and things like strollers and car seats. So I think all that will be taken into account. And I think the combination of, and this is where I think they might deviate a bit from what they originally intended, which was to go across the board back to the IEEPA rates per country. I think because of the pressures they're getting from Congress, reading the tea leaves on the midterm elections, I think we might see a little bit of a lighter touch on certain product categories and certainly imports for domestic manufacturing.